Hello and welcome. Adita Lang here, and in today's class, think of this more as a technique and workout class, where I'm going to be going over some of the fine-tuned technique to actually make your exercise program more efficient and more calorie burning, to be very honest. So if you want to really maximize what you're doing, listen here and you're going to get all the tips and tricks to make your fitness much more effective. Okay, so when you first start a workout, the most important thing is to warm up. And what is a warm-up? Well, a warm-up is actually just getting the blood flow to circulate around your body and for your body to actually warm up. When it's warmer, then when we stretch and we move in maybe positions that we're not used to, we are less likely to get injured. So there can be many kinds of warm-up, and I'm sure you've taken some group exercise class and done a warm-up, but I'm going to talk about two warm-ups that I know many of my clients use all the time. One is they go walking, or maybe they do a walking program at home and they're just marching in place. So let's just talk about the mechanics of marching in place and do this with me, because this is our warm-up, to be very honest. Now, as I'm marching in place, my feet are striking the floor and they are rolling toe, ball, heel. Toe, ball, heel. Now, many times when we're rushed, maybe we're not thinking about it, we're just kind of hitting the ground with the ball of our foot. And unfortunately, that's becoming very inefficient. And we're not using as many muscles as we should. And when we don't use that many muscles, guess what? We don't burn as many calories. So when you're marching, think toe, ball, heel. Now, at the same time too, we have some posture cues that we need to think about. Now with that, you have your shoulders back and down. Your chest is uplifted. Your abdominals are held in nice and tight. And I hate to say this, but this is your posture all day long. This is your posture when you're driving the car, when you're pulling out the groceries, when you're picking up a child, whatever it is, abdominals are in, shoulders are back and down. I want you to visualize your shoulder blades pulling down into your back pockets. That's where they land. That in turn rises up your chest, and maybe it feels awkward, but that's okay. Lift up the chest, and then it actually expands the lungs, which now enables you to bring in more oxygen. So it's all a win-win, to be very honest. Now, the next part of a warm-up, at least for us today, is going to be when we go walking. We go walking. Yeah, we'll go walking. So now this time when you're walking outside. You're landing heel, ball, toe, heel, ball, toe. The heel strikes first. You push all the way through your tiptoes, and honestly, when you push through your tiptoes, that propels you forward. So if you're at home doing this, just try to make a big circle. Go as far as you can, use your square footage, but it's always heel, ball, toe. Now, as you go heel, ball, toe, I'm going to slow down, just keep walking. As you go heel, ball, toe, when you push off the toe, your glutes contract. So think about contracting the glutes as you're walking through. And then, don't forget the posture cues. So your shoulders are back and down, your chest is up, and your abs are in. So if you think about it, now maybe you slightly made your stride a little smaller because you are so concentrated on this stuff, and that's okay, because it's just very important. Heel, ball, toe, heel, ball, toe. Now keep walking, keep walking. I'm just gonna say something here. Now, the average person goes heel, stops at the ball of their foot, takes the next step, okay? So again, thinking, going all the way through your tiptoe, all the way through the tiptoe before you take the next step. So very important, because once again, keep walking. Keep walking. I didn't tell you to stop yet. Keep walking. Once again, you start utilizing more muscle fibers. The more muscle fibers you use, guess what? The more calories you burn and the more efficient the exercise is. Okay, come back to the center and let's just go back to marching. And I'm basically just trying to warm us up so we can do some exercises here. We will do a bit of stretching as we're doing our exercises as well. But I just wanted you to go through these two, both the marching and the walk, to know exactly where your body should be so you can be as efficient as possible. That motion of going through your toes, anytime you are propelling yourself forward, you are doing that. So guess what? You are striking a stair. You're getting up on the stair and you're going to take the next step up. Same thing. Roll through the entire foot. Make that work be efficient so that you can actually burn some great calories doing your ordinary things during the day. That is the key, okay? So we've been moving for about 5 minutes, and so I am going to now bring this down, and here's what I want you to think about. So if you are going to go to the gym and you want to warm up, you could get on a cardiovascular machine they have steppers, they have walkers, they have climbers, they have ellipticals, all these kind of things. Now, the key is, and right now I'm only talking warm-up, the key is to be able to speak clearly. You're getting on there literally just to warm up your body. You don't have to move very fast. It's just to get the circulation going. Now, if your goal is cardio, let's talk cardio for a minute. Cardio, I want you to think about your breath. They call it perceived exertion. And what that means is, so you could watch a watch and look at your heart rate and follow it that way, but you could also go by perceived exertion, which I typically like. And the reason being is because then you can listen to your body. So what does that mean? If I'm moving way too fast, I'm gonna get to the point where I'm huffing and puffing. So if I'm there, I'm no longer burning body fat because I don't have oxygen being pulled in because I'm running out of oxygen. So the goal is to push yourself just before that point. So you'll walk, let's say you're walking outside. You're gonna walk to the stop sign really, really fast. You get to the stop sign, you're huffing and puffing a little bit. So now on the next walk, you just slow down. You let your breath catch yourself. And then all of a sudden you speed up again. And then you let your breath catch. And that's the way your cardio should be. So it would go up, down, up, down, up, down the whole time. Because then you are truly challenging your heart, but not over challenging, and you're staying within a cardiovascular zone, which is your goal, right? So if you're on an elliptical or on a stepper or a treadmill, you just play around with the resistance, the incline, the height, right? And you play with it. And you get to that point where you're almost breathless, and you'll start to feel when you know it's coming to you, and then you just back yourself down just a little bit, just to catch your breath, and then you do it again, okay? Now, let's move on to the next part of this. What are we gonna do? Can we talk legs a little bit since we're standing? We're gonna talk legs. We're gonna talk a squat. So a squat you can do with weights, or you can do it just on your own. Basically, your feet are hip distance apart. I'm gonna turn to both directions so you can see me. Feet are hip distance. Now, what does hip distance mean? Guess what? It means hip distance. I say hip distance so many times. You know, I've taught group exercise for way too long. And people will go like this. That's not hip distance, my friends. Hip distance, right underneath your hip joints. Okay, now from there, you're gonna press your tailbone back. And as you do that, as your hips go back, you can feel your toes rise up into the air because your weight's on your heels. So the most important part of this exercise is I need you to grip your toes down as you sit back. Now notice how my knees are right over my ankle, maybe slightly over my midfoot, but they're never over my toes because once they go over your toes, it's a lot of stress on the knees. So the goal is to sit the weight back. Abdominals are in tight. You're looking forward. Basically, your chest and your eyes are forward, so that keeps your neutral spine, your natural alignment in your spine. And the only place that you're truly bending from is your hips and knees. Abdominals are in tight, and literally in my shoes, I can feel my toes like a little claw holding down to keep the stability in my feet. We're going to do 3 more. 2 more. Come on, we can do this one more time. Excellent. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is balance. And here's the thing about balance. The average person starts to think, oh, I have no balance, and they think of it more like a disease. The reality is that when you don't have balance, there's a muscular imbalance that is occurring, and typically it comes from our feet. I know that sounds strange, but it does. It comes from our feet because we have been wearing shoes for so long that our toes really don't need to engage. And that is the key. So if you notice when I taught squats, I talked about pressing the toes down, really engaging the toes. And the same thing would go for balance exercises. Balance exercises are incredibly efficient because they work a lot of muscles at one time. So you could hold a wall or a chair. The guide here, though, is to hold it gingerly, not very strong. I don't want you to hold on for dear life, just a little to hold your balance. Now, the leg that's on the floor, I've got 5 toes. They need to be gripping down, and my big toe should have the same amount of weight as my little toe. At the same time, I need my shoulders back and down, my abdominals in very tight, and now my spine and my body weight is stacked right over my foot. And from there, I can do a leg extension, nice and slow. Now, the key here is to go slow so you actually feel the quadricep contract. Take your time, pretend like there's 1,000 pounds and you are pushing. Keeping the abdominals in and keeping the shoulders back. Now, here's one key to balance. The minute you start moving your eyes around, which I just did, and you start moving your shoulders around, guess what? You're going to lose balance. So the key is really to keep that good posture. Oh, and the focus. Use all the toes. We'll do 2 more. Abs are in tight. And come down. Excellent. The other leg. Abdominals are in. Sitting up tall, pull the leg up. Grip all those toes into the floor and press through the heel. Remember, you are pushing like it's 1,000 pounds. Press straight out and in. Using your breathing. Inhale and exhale. You have 4 and 3. Now 2 and 1. Okay, here's a tip. If that balance exercise was incredibly difficult for you, I have a homework assignment. It's going to sound strange, but bear with me. I want you to take your shoes off, and I want you to just, maybe when you're sitting watching television, pick up tissues with your toes. And from there, just like weight training, that you start increasing weight, you will move to a AAA battery and pick up the AAA battery from the floor. Get your toes moving. That is so important, I cannot tell you, because that's what's going to keep you stable. That's going to be that stability that you are off on vacation and there is some kind of misstep on the road and you'll be able to catch yourself. So that is the key. We want to keep ourselves as stable as possible. Okay, the next exercise, a lunge. So a lunge can be done in various different ways. I'm going to talk about all of them and kind of give you the cues for it. So when it comes first, if you've never done a lunge before, it's an incredibly efficient exercise. You're going to do a stationary lunge right where I'm at. And we're going to go down and up. Now remember, front knee over the ankle midfoot, back knee bends to 90. Now, stacking up your body, shoulders back and down, abdominals in tight, coming down and up. Inhale and exhale. Using your breath. Now, as you come up, you contract the glutes. As you go down, this front thigh is directing traffic. Abdominals are solid. 2 more. 1 more time. And come up. Let's do the other side. So same thing. Up on the toe, chest is up tall. Bending the knee and coming up. Keeping the abdominals very tight. Full inhale, full exhale. Now, the minute we start to round forward, we throw our alignment off, and then our muscles are not being as efficient as they should be. So the key really is to sit up tall. 2 more. 1 more time. Okay, so let's say you mastered that lunge. And you're like, I've got that. That was easy enough. I can do that. Your next lunge is going to be stepping back. You're going to step back and in. So you'll be doing an alternating lunge side to side. Again, the key is this front knee. Front knee stays over the ankle midfoot. Now, you mastered that lunge. Now what? So we're going to do lunges stepping forward. This is a little trickier. The key is a very large step so that we don't push into our knee. So it's a large step, sitting down in the center, step back. Next one, same thing. But remembering that front knee is imperative. Abdominals are solid, shoulders are back and down. 1 more leg. And up. I want to take a moment to speak about different tools you can use for resistance. So we have dumbbells. You could also use a full water bottle. You could use a can of beans, for example, depending on the resistance you want, which we're going to talk about in a second. But you can also use resistance tubing. I love this stuff. Now, resistance bands also come with what's called a door attachment, so you can actually attach it to the door and now be able to pull from a top point, a middle point, and a low point, making a door and bands a full gym. So just keep that in mind. This is a great tool. For today's class, we're going to basically be using weights, but remember that resistance bands are very good. And if you travel a lot, this is the best way to take your workout with you. we are going to talk back. Placing yourself in a lunge position, abdominals are nice and tight. We're going to hinge. So when I say hinge, you're bending from your hip, keeping your neutral spine. You hinge forward, put a little bit of weight in the front knee, and we're going to pull this elbow up. And as the elbow comes up, I want you to think about the shoulder blade. It stays incredibly connected and aims towards the other shoulder blade. Your abdominals are in, your chest is up, shoulders are back and down. See, that never changes. And you squeeze from the elbow up through the body, keeping everything nice and tight and close to the center. One more time. And bring that down. Let's go to the other side, same thing. You're going to hinge forward, abdominals are solid, chest is up, and remember, you're moving this shoulder blade towards the other shoulder blade. And here's what I want you to think about with weight training. Take your time, and I want you to feel the muscle contract all the way through. Inhale and exhale. One more time. And come down. Okay, can we talk resistance? So how do you choose resistance that you're going to use in exercise? The goal with muscular training is always overload. What does that mean? That means it's got to get harder. If you start just lifting a weight and it becomes easy and you just keep going, but you say, I'm lifting weights, your muscle is no longer being challenged. In turn, you're no longer burning as many calories as you were when it was challenging. So the goal with weight training is basically lifting 8 to 10 reps. So 8 should be kind of difficult. By the time you get to 10, it's challenging. Now, by the time you can easily go to 12, guess what? Increase weight. That's your cue. So that is the best way to go through weight training. Now, I understand maybe we don't have weights. As I mentioned earlier, you can always use bands. But the key is always to make the exercises get harder and harder. Okay, I'd like to talk about biceps. So your biceps are right here in front, and we can do it in several different positions. We could sit in a chair and do bicep curls, we could sit on the floor, or we could do them standing. Either way, the same form and technique is going to apply. So here's what I want you to think about. Shoulders are back and down, as we've been speaking about, and you are slowly bending your elbow. Now, not to say that you're just bending your elbow here, though. I want you to think about the muscle that you are contracting. So as I'm pulling these weights up, these are 5-pound weights, I'm pretending that they're 100 so that I can actually engage every single muscle fiber in my biceps. Now, as I go in and out, I am inhaling one way and exhaling the other, utilizing my breath as my rhythm of movement. We have 4 more. And 3. Now 2, one more time. And 1. Excellent. Okay, so our shoulders, can we talk shoulders? Shoulders have 3 different areas. You have the front, you have the middle, you have the back. Typically, in most exercise classes and programs, they focus on the front and they forget about everything else. So let's start a little bit different. I'm going to set these down. The first thing you're going to do is we're going to work on what's called retraction. So what is retraction? There's another muscle in our body that loves to stretch, and when it stretches, it doesn't look very pretty. It means our shoulders roll forward. So there's that muscle in between the shoulder blades that actually pulls your shoulder blades back. Taking both arms out and literally just squeezing your shoulder blades and letting them go. The elbows stay straight, and it's only a movement coming from your shoulder blades. That's the key here. Inhale one way, exhale the other. Keeping those shoulder blades, squeezing them. I always say it's like squeezing a $100 bill between your shoulder blades, and then you drop the shoulder blades. And you drop it. And in. One more time. So this is a good primer to get you ready for your exercises. Now, taking our dumbbells again, let's work on the back of our shoulders. So, your feet are hip distance. You're going to bend the knees, pushing your tailbone back so you're hinging from your hip. And now pulling the elbows up towards the sky. Abdominals are very tight. And I'm basically, again, keeping the wrist right underneath my elbow, so I have that 90-degree bend, but I'm working on the back of my shoulder blades. Now, if you're in this position and your back is starting to hurt, I want you to think abdominals. You have to pull in from the rib cage and from the lower abs, from where the navel is at. Keep that all pulled in so that your back feels protected. At the same time, to notice, I'm in what's called neutral spine, which means that I'm not bent in the middle of my back. I'm actually just bent from my hips. So that would be your next cue. One more time here. And release. Okay, so that was the back of our shoulders. Now can we talk sides? So sides of our shoulder would be basically just be sitting up nice and tall, small bend in the knees, and bringing your arms up to about shoulder level. Now, even though I'm moving my arms, my shoulder blades are still back and down. It still feels like my chest is up in the air. Use your breathing. Inhale one way, exhale the other. 4 more. And 3. Now 2, one more time. And 1. Excellent. Okay, so now the front of the shoulders moving on. Now, do we have to do all these exercises one after the other? No, you can mix things up any way you want to be very honest. The key is you don't want to ever get into an exercise and feel like you're so tired that you have to force yourself through it. That's going to cause injury. So I would prefer that you separate these exercises in any way that you want to. So I could go into doing squats right now if I wanted to, and then come back to shoulders. Or I could go walk on the treadmill and then come back. So you can mix them up, because ideally, every exercise you perform it with excellent form and technique. So now arms are up, abs are nice and tight, arms come up and down, just a basic shoulder press. So this shoulder press can be either here right in front, or we can move out to the sides. Either one. Again, wrist always over the elbow. Abdominals are very tight. Now shoulders are still back and down even though I'm extending my arms up. And every time I push the weight up, I pull my abdominals in. So that's actually an important factor there, is when weight becomes challenging, I want you to think abdominals and squeeze them tighter to help fortify the body. One more time. And come down. Let's go down to the floor. Okay, having a seat here, let's start with both legs out. We'll take a time to stretch for a moment. Chest is up tall, and here's the key. Sometimes we have to maneuver our hips a little bit so we can sit up on our tailbone as best as possible. And now we're going to bend from our hip, keeping that neutral spine completely engaged and the abdominals in and the chest up. Now you'll feel that going right along the hamstrings. Pull the toes towards you and hold. The key to stretching is your form and technique. If I were to stretch like the average person who just feels like they're trying to get down here as much as possible, I can barely feel this underneath my hamstrings, to be very honest. So the key again, lengthen, bend from the hip, and you will feel that go all the way through your calves, all the way into your hips. Hold there. Now next, let's take this into a figure 4. Deep breath. And exhale, again, bending from the hips and pull forward. And now you're going to feel it concentrated right in the hip joint. And slowly come up, pull the knee in, turn your body and give yourself a little bit of a twist. It's very important to move our spine as much as possible. And the reason being is every time we create the movement within our spine, bend from the hip, we actually move nutrition through our spine as well. So it keeps it strong and it keeps it healthy. Now sitting up, knee in and turn. Chest is up tall, shoulders are back and down. Okay, let's talk push-ups. Now, you could easily do a push-up off of a kitchen counter, which I'm going to show you first. So with that said, you would take your arms nice and wide, back your feet up where you feel like you have the weight of your body in your hands, and then bend. Now the key here is the wrist should land right under the elbow and press up, which means that your elbow goes to 90 degrees and up. So this is where you'd start if you've never done a push-up before. Notice there's no movement in my hips or lower back. All of my body weight is in my hands. Now once we've mastered that, we're going to come down to the floor. So hands are going to go, again, nice and wide. You're on your knees, and we're going to start with step 2. So step 2 is my body's a little square, and again, I'm bending from my hips and pressing up. So I can feel just a little bit of weight in my hands, but there is weight in my knees as well. But notice that there's no change in my back. So the movement comes from my hip. Now I get stronger. So now I move all my weight into my hands. There is kind of a straight line between the tip of my head and my knees, and I'm going to bend down. Once again, keeping the wrist under the elbow, so it's practically 90 degrees. My abdominals are in, but my hips come down as I bend. So I'm not keeping my hips in the air. They now come down with me as I bend. Let's do 3 more. One more time. And just bend those knees and stretch back. So taking this one more step further, I'm going to bring these weights around. I have 2 sets of weights. I have a light set and a heavier set. So bigger muscles, bigger weight. Littler muscles, littler weight. So we just did chest, which is our push-ups. And I'm going to bring in triceps and a chest exercise so you can see that as well. Coming down to your back, you're going to take your big dumbbells in hand and bring them up to the sky. First things first, push your knuckles up so that your wrist is very straight. Then from there, open your elbows out to 90 degrees. Again, keeping the wrist right over the elbow, and then press up. Now, I want you to feel your shoulders pushed into the floor, and then open wide and up. And the key to form and technique is always reviewing your form and technique. Sometimes we get lazy, sometimes the weight feels heavier, so we just start to let our wrists fall and our elbows fall and our hands fall. So I want you to slow down, keeping the wrist over the elbow and keeping the wrist nice and straight. 2 more, please. 1 more. And bring those weights down. So let's talk triceps. It's basically the same principles. Your arms go up, shoulders are in towards the floor, knuckles to the sky to keep your wrist straight, but this time your hands are facing each other, and you're going to bend the elbows to 90 degrees and then straight up. Now notice that my elbow is not moving all over the place. It is staying in one spot. It's aiming straight to the sky, and it's not moving. Because then as I extend my arm, I can focus on contracting my tricep, and I'm pretending that the weight is actually heavier than it is so that I can fully engage the tricep muscle as I extend the weight. 1 more time. And bring that down. So let's talk abdominals for a second here, can we? Your abdominals connect to your rib cage and they go down to your pubic bone. So the goal here is going to be to take your hands behind your head, and I want you to lift your head up about 1 inch off the ground. Now from there, I want you to feel the weight of your head in your hands. Literally, feel the weight. It's about 8 to 10 pounds. Some people might be a couple more, but you know, that's just a very individual brain thing. What can I say? Anyways, so we are here, 8 to 10 pounds. Now, I want you to take all your awareness to your ribs, and I want you to try to squeeze the ribs in and towards your pubic bone, and then let them go. Ideally, if you exhale, it makes it easier. So exhale, come up, squeeze the ribs in tight, and then inhale, come down, and exhale. So the effort is not coming from my hands. The effort is coming from my rib cage, squeezing in and down towards my pubic bone. Inhale one way, exhale the other. Keep going, use your breath, and use your breath as your guide and your rate of movement. 3 more. 2 and 1. Bring yourself down. Pull the knees into the chest. Just give yourself a little stretch. We can always do that. Extend one leg up and stretch here. And switch sides. So as the leg is up, I want you to push the pubic bone down as you pull the leg towards you, and that's going to give you the full stretch. So really think of pressing the hips in towards the floor. Now, I'd like to say one more thing about abdominals. And think about it. Sit up. Many people, many of us, can grip our fingers underneath our rib cage. The minute you can do that, you're not contracting your abdominals. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about pulling your ribs in just enough where it feels like your ribs and your abdominals become one. And that is a good contraction of abdominals. Now here's the thing with abdominals. It's one of those muscles that stretches for no reason. Well, you know, for women it's to give birth. For men, I don't know why it stretches, but it just does. But with that said, we don't want to teach it to be stretched out. We want to teach it to be contracted in. So you have to always keep it engaged when you are driving, when you're sitting at your desk, when you're going up and down stairs, when you're lifting up heavy boxes. At all times, making it a habit to keep the rib cage in and down, just enough to keep them nice and solid with the abdominals. And that's the thing, is that if you haven't been doing this on a normal basis and you're doing it now with me, you're just going to look at me going, wow, this is a lot of effort. I don't know if I can keep this up all day. And I understand that, I really do, because it's a habit that you've created. So put a Post-it in different places that you can see it, and every time you see the Post-it, you go, oh, let me pull in those ribs, let me pull in those ribs. And with time, it'll become habit. And that really is the goal, okay? Good. Now, shall we continue on? So let's talk the muscles of our back. And I'm moving these weights away so they're not in our way. If you place yourself on all fours, now your knees are directly underneath your hips, your hands are directly underneath the shoulders, taking the right leg back and the left arm forward. Some of you are going to be stable, some of you are moving all over the place. So what I want you to do is find a spot on the floor to stare at, and I want you to try to get yourself to a point where you are as stable as possible. From here, you're going to lift up 1 inch and down 1 inch. Abdominals are very tight, full control. If you still feel like you're wiggling around, move slower. Try to make the move smaller, or maybe just hold it and don't do anything. The goal is to keep this as steady as possible. One more time. And come down. Same thing on the other side. Leg goes out, arm goes out. Abdominals are nice and tight. Full inhale, full exhale. Keeping yourself steady. So here's the story. You have muscles that run on either side of your spine. And sometimes because of sports, athletics, or maybe just inactivity, those muscles become, they don't have the same amount of strength. One more. And so when they don't have the same amount of strength, our spine is not protected the way it should be. So when we do an exercise like this, it actually gives us a very clear indication if those muscles are working together as a team. And if we're wiggling around, guess what? They're not. And that means that this becomes an incredibly important exercise for you. So make sure that you incorporate this and you master it. I like to do 10 reps on each side, but nice and steady, taking your time. You can move as slow as you want to, but full control, because then you know that everything is working. And not to mention that your abdominals have to be engaged, because if you allow your abdominals to hang out as you're trying to balance yourself, you're not going to balance yourself. So this actually is a true core exercise, making all the muscles of your core, which is going to be the muscles of your back, hip, and abdominals, work together as a team. And if they're all working together as a team, guess what? Burning more calories, being more efficient, and making your body much stronger as well. Okay? Now, one little thing with that, your core. Let's talk core, shall we? Think of your spine as building blocks stacked one on top of the other. And they have nothing holding them in place. They're just stacked. So the only thing holding them in place is the muscles of your back and the muscles of your abdomen. So when these are strong, your back is strong. But when these guys are lazy, your back can do all sorts of weird things, and that's where all these pains come from. So we want to make sure that we're always keeping these muscles nice and tight and strong so that they keep our core strong. And when we go to lift up a box or pull a kid out of a car or anything else, that we don't have those weird aches and pains that cause us some other dilemmas, right? So we want to make sure we keep all of that engaged together. Okay, continuing on with a little bit of core challenge, can we talk a plank? So plank is actually a great exercise, and I'm going to teach you the two modes of a plank. So you've never done a plank before. How are you going to start this? You're coming down on your elbows, You're backing your knees up, creating a straight line, and you are contracting your abdominals and looking down all at the same time. And basically, a plank is just staying here. Now, we can add a little bit of movement to it, which is what I like to do. So if you've mastered this and want to work your way to the next level, now we can add movement where we come up on our toes and back down to our knees. Now notice my lower back and my hips don't change. The only thing that changes is where my weight distribution is landing on my toes. And every time I come up on my toes, I pull my abdominals in even tighter. 2 more. 1 more time. Okay. Sitting back, give yourself just a little stretch here. It's always a good thing. So when it comes to a plank, what's the next step? And these different variations, I'm not giving them to you for you to do them all at once. Choose one variation, and that's what you do until you get strong enough to move to the next one. So your next variation for a plank is going to be up on your hands. Again, holding yourself here, abdominals in very tight. And you hold for time. You could do it for 30 seconds, you could do it for 60 seconds. Again, noticing that my hips aren't in the air, they're in a nice straight line from my heels all the way to my shoulders. Now, if I wanted to add something to this, I could lift one leg. I could do 5 on one, and I could do 5 on the other. And I could move. Now remember, spine is not changing, hips are not changing, and this would be considered your advanced move. And bring yourself down. And stretch back. Okay. Let's go a little bit more in depth when it comes to stretching. Coming down on your back, starting here, just pulling the knees into the chest. Now, as I'm pulling my knees into the chest, at the same time, I'm pressing my tailbone down to the floor. So I am trying to keep my natural curvature as I pull my knees in. That's going to give me the most effective stretch. Pressing one leg down, one leg up. So now I'm pressing my tailbone down, my heel to the sky, and then I'm giving it a little bit of a tug forward, still keeping my tailbone into the floor. This will give me the entire stretch all the way through my hamstring. Deep breath here, and exhale. And now to take this even a step further, take the leg out to the side, keep the tailbone down. We're very busy, we have a lot going on. And now pull the leg towards you and hold. And then come back to center. We're going to take this one more step. This is my favorite and my least favorite stretch because it hurts, but it's really good. So here's what we're going to do. Tailbone is down, my hip is in the floor, but I'm going to pull my leg over and towards me. And I have to do this without allowing this hip to come off the ground. And when you do that, it gets into your piriformis and in through your hamstrings, and it's just very tight, and that's okay because it is a great stretch and release. And the other side comes up. Hold yourself here, tailbone into the floor, and pull towards you. So how long do you hold a stretch for? Realistically, you're going to feel it. It feels painful, and then it kind of let goes, and the minute it let goes, then you can let go too. Bring the leg out, take it to the side, and pull in. Some say it's 30 seconds, some say it's 45 seconds. It really has to do with how tight are you. That's just the bottom line. And you can release, and you can pull again, and come center. We're going to go across the chest, this hip stays down, and then pull it towards you, and hold. This is that painful one, but it's okay. It's a great stretch. It's fabulous. And now release. So taking and crossing one foot on the knee, pulling in from the other leg and pressing yourself in. We call this a figure 4. Now, as I'm stretching forward, again, I'm still trying to push my tailbone into the ground, but I'm going to feel the stretch all the way through the hip. And release. The other side, cross the foot over, big deep breath, and exhale and pull in. And release. So bringing yourself over to the side and sitting up. We've done good. So keeping your hips into the ground, let's just take ourselves into a side stretch. So as I stretch my left arm over, I'm actually pushing my left hip into the floor all at the same time and come up. Now, pretend like there's this giant round ball in front of me. So with that, I'm going to reach this arm up and over as I'm stretching, still keeping both hips on the ground. And now I can feel the stretch up in my upper back and release. Other side, bringing yourself over and hold. And remember that big beach ball? Let's reach up and over the beach ball. And come back to center. Now taking both hands in, the hands are another area that we tend to forget. I want you to stretch your hands towards me and hold. And if it hurts a lot, then just release it. Do again. And you can release. Do one more time. Hold there. This time come all the way up and back. Deep breath, and as you exhale, round your back forward. Allow your lower back to aim backwards and hold. And now slowly stack your spine up, get really straight, and pull your shoulders back into place. And we're going to do that one more time, all the way up. And round forward, abdominals room tight, lower back goes back. Slowly stack yourself up and pull the shoulders back into place and release. Hands behind the head, big deep breath, and exhale, chin to chest. So sitting up very straight so that the bend is only from your neck, and you'll feel that behind the neck. And come center, inhale, and exhale over to one side. And come center and the other side. And come center and release. Thanks for joining me in today's class. Well, like I said, this was more of a technique workout, and I hope you did get a good workout through there. But the key here is to always remember these key points coming from posture, coming from pulling in your abdominals, and really concentrating on the effort and the work that a muscle is doing. That way, you make every exercise that you do much more efficient. And taking it one more step, I want you to use those same principles when you pull a box out of the car, when you are lifting something up the stairs, when you're just doing daily activities. Those form and technique cues, guess what? They still apply, and they still make your movements much more efficient and less likely for injury. Have a great day.